Welcome back. I've got Cole Shephard online. Cole, how are you?
Doing great, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Really looking forward to this conversation and the really important work you and your team are doing. So, why don't you share a little bit about you, and then we're going to jump into this very important conversation.
Sure. So my name's Cole Shephard. I'm calling in from Medellin, Colombia. I am the founder and chairman of the board of the largest coffee producer in Colombia. It's called Green Coffee Company. Started about 7 years ago, small investment amount. Now we've grown to the largest consolidated producer in the country, and we represent the Juan Valdez brand in the United States and Canada.
I have some Juan Valdez coffee over in a little drawer right over there. Both decaf and regular. It's the instant kind, and you don't know it's instant. I mean, it's just a shameless plug. My brother got me hooked on it when I visited him in Detroit, and he said, "Here, try this." And I did. I'm like, okay, cool. He said, well, what is it? And he said, that's instant. I'm like, no. And he's like, yeah. He showed me the container. I'm like, I'm getting some of that. I need to have some of that. So it's really good stuff. And yeah, I love coffee. And it was so funny is years and years ago, I used to drink it, and I spent a lot of time in Canada, so we call it double
Mhm.
doubles and all that stuff. So double cream, double sugar, and then
Sure.
uh, then I determined or found out and discovered that I have a lactose intolerance. So it's like, okay, well, we should probably cut that out. So I did, and I was just using sugar. And I thought, you know what? I'm already drinking the coffee anyway. I'm tasting the coffee. I'm getting more acclimated to, the different types of tastes and all of that. So let's just get rid of the sugar. And boy, am I glad I did that, because then you actually get to taste the coffee and admire the flavors and the aromas and the different things that it does. So yeah, that was one of the biggest things. Like, oh yeah, we get to talk coffee today. But
Oh
I
yeah.
think, well, go ahead.
No, no. I said, oh yeah. I mean, that's the way to drink coffee is without cream and sugar. Good
Yep.
coffee, you don't need it.
No, exactly, and it's and the good stuff and the so-so stuff. And my wife and I were at an event or a festival not too far from us this past weekend, and went into a little family restaurant, and they had their coffee, which I know was probably bought from a coffee distribution place, but it was actually pretty decent, because usually you can go, okay, I know what I'm going to be expecting here. It's going to be from a mass-produced type of thing. And I drank, it's like, this is actually pretty decent. I'm sure they had all the locals complaining until they got their formula right. But that's one thing that people are passionate about a lot of things, but coffee is definitely one of those as well. So what got you interested in this line of work?
Sure. So, before I moved to Colombia, I worked at PwC in Hong Kong. So my background was M&A, buying banks, insurance companies, asset managers. I came down to Colombia and saw a mountain of opportunity. I was looking at either coming down and running teams with the firm I was working for, or going to actually Southeast Asia. I was looking at one of the two of them. Came down to Colombia, saw a tremendous amount of opportunity, decided to leave the firm and start my own businesses. A lot in real estate, and then really got into, let's say, commodity trading, mostly in fresh cut flowers, then delved into coffee, then delved into cacao, and really got hooked on the coffee bug with that. Really, we set up a project mostly for high net worth investors in the US, kind of like a collateral based project that would compete with multifamily deals. And we started from there, really as kind of like a real estate syndicated project that competes in that space. And then, about 2 years in, we've decided we have a tremendous amount of opportunity. Let's get it to the next level. Really bring in some real capital, real management teams, and then it's been kind of a rocket ship since then.
And congratulations on that. And I always tell people, especially young associates that are joining the various consulting firms. I talk with them and I say, look, yeah, the work in the beginning is hard. It's supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good. Look at it as an opportunity, but pay attention, study, ask questions, not just your typical what consultants do and ask, but no, literally be curious about how organizations work, how things work, how mergers work. Get really curious about this stuff, because you might end up, finding an opportunity and go, you know what, this sounds like something that I could really lean on and really love. And you get to use, all the tools that you picked up during your career in a way that has really skyrocketed for you and the team. And I love hearing that, especially when it's, in Latin America or other parts of the world, when it happens in the States, okay, all right, it's Tuesday. Okay, guess what? That happens all the time. But when it happens in Latin America or certain parts of Asia or other parts of the world that don't necessarily have that same, length of success in tons of businesses, really crushing it. I always love hearing that because one, brings opportunity to the people of the region. Number two, it just expands it and it makes it more global. And again, going back to the coffee stuff, it's like, yeah, I'm going to want my coffee beans to come from an area where it just thrives and grows and not from someplace else where it's not a natural thing for it to grow. So it always makes me happy when I hear, success stories, especially in places where it was difficult. Like, I had a guy in the interview about a month ago, and he launched, a business in Ukraine,
Mhm.
and during the last couple of years, and like, so they let you out of the psych ward, are you, what do you, but he's thriving because the business is serving a need of the communities that are there that need things,
Mhm.
in spite of all that's going on there. So he saw an opportunity to really benefit the local community, obviously benefit himself, benefit his organization, stakeholders, all of that. It could be a win-win. And that's what this is. It's a win-win type of situation and, growing. And I don't think the demand for coffee is going to drop off any soon. Just a hunch.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but I doubt it. Just because of, what we've already talked about.
That's
So,
right.
so I think the next question I got for you is, so when you're in, and again, I think your international experience helped because
Hmm.
you go into different markets and you can kind of figure out, okay, what's the differences from here compared to Manhattan or
Hmm.
LA or something like that. So when you first went down there and all of a sudden you realize, okay, here's some opportunities here, how did you leverage, because I know sometimes in working in different jurisdictions, there's some more regulations than what you're used to in certain areas.
Hmm.
So, how did you navigate through all that, to convince all the powers that be to, make it easier for the organization to grow and thrive? What was that process like without, giving away trade secrets or anything
Sure.
like that?
Sure, Michael. So, I mean, I was used to, working within emerging markets. When I worked in Hong Kong, before that, I lived in Bermuda with the firm. And so I was traveling a lot. Like when I worked in a regional role in Hong Kong, I was doing deals in South Korea, Malaysia, Japan, Thailand, mainland China. We looked at deals in the Middle East. We would go back and do, outbound deals to the US. And so when you work in different markets, you understand pretty quick how to get up to speed. And when I talk about working in deals, like you're actually there on the ground. You're not, doing this from desktop research from an office somewhere. So I think the most important aspect of it when I came down to Colombia is doing it in person and leading it myself. When I started, it wasn't just coffee. It was using my own capital to invest in real estate deals, using my own capital to build small teams and find whether it's arbitrage opportunities on distressed real estate or it's an on-treated or an on-polished trade flow between Asia and Latin America, which is what I did with fresh cut flowers. I specialized in South Korea, Japan, Indonesia, and South China trade. For a new trade route, which is fairly new for Colombia, if you can build teams and understand how those trade flows work, whether it's financial, social, economic, whatever those might be, you have a business. You have a business there. So Colombia is, while it's challenging, it's not fundamentally different from a risk or a difficulty to understand perspective than other emerging markets. If I was in Malaysia or Vietnam, it would be the same kind of challenges, but the challenges themselves might be unique. A lot of it is about keeping an open mind to the challenges you face, whether it be cultural or language barrier or legal or whatever. Everything will be challenging in frontier and emerging markets. That's just a fact. And you need to become an expert on what those challenges are and how to face them. But obviously, you're going to pound your face into a brick wall almost every day, and it's going to happen for years. And honestly, it doesn't always get better. You just become more adept and saying, oh, this brick wall is here. This is what I do. This is a different brick wall. This is what I do. And as you start building teams and getting better people around you, that obviously helps immensely. Doing everything on your own only works, and I guess that bootstrapping position only works for so long to where you say, how do I get the best and the brightest around me so that I don't hit my face too much against brick walls?
Yeah, and just understand, okay, how do I navigate around this wall? Is there any way that I can get through it? And again, leaning on your past experiences as well and past success, past challenges and whatnot. Because again, in an emerging market, and you know this, but maybe your listeners aren't as fully aware, is you're doing things that haven't been done before.
That's right.
So that natural, we need to compare this to something we've done, that exercise is difficult because we haven't done this. So a lot of people, whether it's governmental bodies or legal or stakeholders or whatnot, are going, it hasn't been done before, and takes a brave few people to have that
Yes.
pioneer spirit to say, yeah, we haven't done it before, but guess what? When they look at this down the road, they say, yeah, it wasn't done before, but Cole and his team did it. And now other players are doing it. And look what it did. It
Hmm.
created opportunities, new marketing platforms, new, like I said, new trading partners, new trading paths, as you mentioned before, where it's like, okay, we've just increased our international trade with China or with Vietnam or whomever that wasn't there before. And now all of a sudden we've got this. It's benefiting both parties because there's now products or services that are available in the countries that weren't there before. And
Hmm.
that's again one of those things that I love hearing about because again, when people are thinking about, what do I want to do? What are some areas? What are some opportunities? There's still an absolute ton of opportunity out there to do all kinds of different things. And 50 years from now, guess what? There's still going to be a ton of opportunities to do great things because things will be different, but there's the opportunities are going to be there. It's just being able to capitalize on it, understanding that yeah, you're going to run into a brick wall or four, and you're going to be able to, adjust accordingly. But then with, the end goal of, getting that product or service out there or expanding a market, you name it. There's so many opportunities. And kudos to you for being bold to do it because you didn't have to. You could have just, stayed at PwC and, had a great career and done
Hmm.
everything you did, but you went, no, no, I want to do something more.
Yes.
And I love when people do that, and that's one of the big reasons why people tune in the show because they love hearing those stories of people that said, "Yeah, I could have done that, but that would have been the safe, comfortable, whatever. That doesn't
That's right.
challenge me. There's no growth there. Let's be bold. Let's go try something different." And the risk takers are the ones that make the things in this world better.
I agree 100%, Michael.
So
100%.
So where do you see things in the industry? I mean, obviously in the work that you're doing and all of that,
Hmm.
I don't ask the where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because 5 years ago we certainly didn't know what the world was going to look like.
That's right.
Not that we ever really did, but I mean, come on, it's a little abnormal to say the least. But what trends are you seeing again, without spoiling or giving away the Colonel's secret recipe type of
Hmm.
thing? Where do you see things going in the various sectors that you're operating in? Specifically for Colombia, but internationally as well. Where do you see some opportunities or some things that are going to be, I'll use the phrase interesting over the next couple of years anyway.
Sure. So we'll take it from an asset management perspective down to the industry perspective. I'll give it from my background, being in financial services, coming into running capital raise teams and whatnot for the company. As of today, we've raised a little over $80 million for the coffee company, green coffee company. And, for Colombia, that's a tremendous amount of capital. In the US, it's a really nice house in Miami Beach, but here in Colombia, you can build a dominant industry. What we see from our high net worth investors is they're trying to get more international exposure and they're trying to do it so in private markets. Places like LATAM are high on the checklist where investors want exposure. They see huge return profiles. And the risk is something they can accept. They understand Latin America, especially in the US. Whereas if you took a European investor, they're more comfortable with African exposure than they'd be with LATAM. In the US, they're comfortable with LATAM exposure. And the things aren't efficient here. And just like you said before, Michael, things won't be efficient in 50 years. When if inefficiencies occur for guys who want to take risk, you'll always have the ability to make some industry or some business better. And there'll always be opportunity there to make what I would say is economic arbitrage from a financial perspective, but also life arbitrage from doing something you think is valuable and not doing the safe route like I would have done if I stayed at PwC, which I completely agree with you, Michael. I think on the industry level, and whether this be coffee or other industries, especially in agriculture, I think you're going to see more companies start to do vertical integration from origin, which is we are the first company really to do this at scale within coffee. There's no global coffee company in the world that goes all the way to origin, farms out their own coffee, pushes it through a final consumer product, and controls that whole chain. I think you're going to see a lot of that happen with other agricultural products, whether it be cacao with chocolate or elsewhere, where you're going to see where supply chains can get strained, whether it's, you can have China, US chain or strain, which you'll see all over the news, and you're going to see nearshoring to Latin America. Just generally, as countries become more frictional with one another, it messes up supply chains. And so I think more companies on an international level, let's say big boy companies, whether they be public or really large privates, are going to want to secure more of their supply chain. So they're going to look to vertically integrate from origin more than they have in the past because they relied in a world of pure globalization. And on a macro trend, I think we're moving from globalization to more of a regionalization of businesses. And you can see that largely within the Americas.
Oh, you definitely see it. And even with, the hiccups that we experienced during the pandemic and supply chain
Sure.
challenges and all that, it definitely brought to light a single point of failures, whether it was, ship blocking the Panama Canal and you're going,
Hmm.
okay, well, nothing's getting through. It's like, wow, we have a lot of freight going through that narrow pathway. Maybe we should
Oh,
think
yeah.
about that. So again, it's kind of a returning to, leveraging your own resources that you have. And, many countries have that. And of course, some don't. But again, with technology and innovation and whatnot, you can do a lot locally or even regionally, and by doing that, it definitely shortens the supply chain window and improves the efficiencies on turnaround and production and you name it, since you're not waiting for parts or materials or ingredients or whatever from another part of the world. And again, all it takes, it can be as simple as, not to say war is simple, but
That's
you
right.
have war situations or block canals or weather related issues. You name it. There's so many different things that can dramatically impact the success or failure of your business that in many ways are completely out of control, but you also have control. And by taking that stance and looking at, okay, what can I bring in-house, for a lack of a better term,
Hmm.
is something that I think a lot of successful organizations have, as you've highlighted, is something that they're going to be doing. And I think short term, it makes a ton of sense, and long term, it gives them the flexibility where they can leverage some things. They say, okay, some of this stuff we're going to continue to do, maybe we'll do that, and they can just kind of adjust as situations warrant, and that just makes them more agile and a stronger organization.
That's right. That's right. I agree with you completely, Michael.
So I've loved this conversation. Where can people find out more about your business, ways they can invest if they're interested, anything like that? What would you like to share?
Sure. So you can check us out at legacy-group.co. That's our website that we run. The asset manager is called Legacy Group. The underlying portfolio company, the largest of ours, is Green Coffee Company, where I sit as founder and chairman of the board. You can check that out at www.greencoffeecompany.com. We are finalizing a $15 million equity raise as we speak. So if you go to either one of those websites or check us out on LinkedIn, both companies have their own LinkedIn pages. You can check out what we're doing and just follow along if you want to see kind of our weekly and monthly updates.
We'll definitely have that in the show notes. So thank you again, Cole, for your time today, and congratulations again on all the success and continued success going forward. It's really important work you're doing.
Thank you, Michael.